Welcome to Haunted Talks, the official podcast of The Haunted Walk, offering ghost tours and paranormal adventures in Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto, Ontario, and online experiences to anyone in this mortal realm. My name is Jim Dean. I am the creative director, and we thank you for joining us for this episode. Today's topic, the Valentich disappearance, like so many of the topics we cover, is a choice that was inspired by other things that we're working on or thinking about. Last week, we published a new blog post about the day a giant jellyfish was spotted swimming across the skies above Toronto, which some believe to have been a UFO. A few days later, I was speaking to a colleague about an emerging idea in paranormal research that seeing things like UFOs, Bigfoot, or even ghosts might be part of the same phenomenon, and that our beliefs or intentions may be a vital factor in having these unusual experiences. Thinking about UFOs and how our beliefs may influence reality brought to mind one of aviation's greatest unsolved mysteries, the strange disappearance of pilot Fredrick Valentich off the coast of Australia in 1978. In the episode, we will be examining the mystery, including the bizarre radio transmission from Valentich, which includes the chilling line, "It's not an aircraft." But before we get to that, I am very happy to announce that we will be resuming our ghost tours at Black Creek Pioneer Village in Toronto on Friday, June 10th. Now, the village is a very interesting spot, containing historical buildings that were built right there on the property, and others that have been brought in from around the greater Toronto area. Without question, this is the most active site that we tour. In the past few years, there's been many exceptional stories and chilling accounts from our tour guides, our customers, and even the staff who work at the village. If you live in or are going to be visiting Toronto this summer into the fall, we would absolutely like to invite you to join us for an extremely memorable evening at the village. Tickets for our ghost tours in Toronto, Ottawa, or Kingston, Ontario can be found on our website, which is hauntedwalk.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, all at Haunted Walk, for the latest news and updates and contests. For the past 2 weeks, we've been running a contest to give away a few of our brand new Haunted Talks t-shirts featuring our new logo. And a quick congratulations to listeners Christopher Barton and Leanna Marr for their big wins there. So make sure you're following us on social so you know when these prizes and other great news and events comes up. 2 easy and helpful ways you can let us know you're out there and enjoying the show is to leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen, and of course to recommend Haunted Talks to friends, family, random strangers on the internet, or anyone you think would enjoy it. On October 21st, 1978, at 6:19 p.m., just before sunset, Fredrick Valentich took off from Melbourne's Moorabbin Airport in a rented Cessna 182, a single-engine, propeller-driven airplane. His flight plan indicated that King Island, roughly halfway between Australia and Tasmania, was his destination. It was about 200 kilometers or a 130-mile journey over a body of water known as the Bass Strait. Now, this was known to test pilots' skill with its challenging conditions. However, on this night, the sky was clear and the winds were calm. At 20 years old, and with only 150 total flying hours under his belt, Valentich would have to be considered an inexperienced flyer, even though he had flown this particular route before. He had attempted to join the Australian Air Force, but had been rejected due to inadequate education. Similarly, having obtained his private pilot's license, he was studying to obtain a commercial license, but also ran into difficulties there, failing all 5 of his exam subjects twice. And just a month before his final flight, failing 3 of the 5. He had also been involved in several concerning flying incidents, including straying into restricted airspace in Sydney, for which he received a warning, and twice deliberately and blindly flying into a cloud, for which prosecution was being considered. The first 45 minutes of the flight were uneventful, until Valentich reached out to the Melbourne Flight Service Unit to ask a very particular question. Is there any known traffic below 5,000 feet? Here is the entirety of that eerie 6-minute conversation, with our audio editor Michelle playing the role of the controller Steve Roby, and myself as Valentich, identified as Delta Sierra Juliet, the registration letters on the plane that he had rented, DSJ.
Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. Is there any known traffic below 5,000?
Delta Sierra Juliet. No known traffic.
Delta Sierra Juliet. It seems to be a large aircraft below 5,000.
Delta Sierra Juliet. What type of aircraft is it?
Delta Sierra Juliet. I cannot affirm. It has 4 bright, seems to be landing lights.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Melbourne, this is Delta Sierra Juliet. The aircraft just passed over me, at least 1,000 feet above.
Delta Sierra Juliet. Roger. And is a large aircraft confirmed?
Unknown due to the speed it's traveling. Is there any Air Force aircraft in the vicinity?
Delta Sierra Juliet. No known aircraft in the vicinity.
Melbourne? It's now approaching from due east towards me.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Delta Sierra Juliet? It seems to me he's playing some sort of game. He's flying over me 2, 3 times at speeds I could not identify.
Delta Sierra Juliet. Roger. What is your actual level?
My level is 4,500. 4500.
Delta Sierra Juliet, and confirm you cannot identify the aircraft?
Affirmative.
Delta Sierra Juliet. Roger. Stand by.
Melbourne, Delta Sierra Juliet. It's not an aircraft. It's a...
Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne. Can you describe the aircraft?
Delta Sierra Juliet. It's flying past. It's a long shape. Cannot identify more than that, as it has such speed. Before me right now, Melbourne.
Delta Sierra Juliet. Roger. And how large would the object be?
Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne. It seems like it's stationary. What I'm doing right now is orbiting, and the thing is just orbiting on top of me. Also, it's got a green light. It's sort of metallic. It's all shiny on the outside.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Delta Sierra Juliet, it's just vanished.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Melbourne, would you know what kind of aircraft that got? Is it a type of military aircraft?
Delta Sierra Juliet. Confirm the aircraft just vanished.
Say again?
Delta Sierra Juliet. Is the aircraft still with you?
Delta Sierra Juliet, it's now approaching from the southwest.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Delta Sierra Juliet, the engine is rough idling. I've got it set it at 23, 24, and the thing is coughing.
Delta Sierra Juliet. Roger. What are your intentions?
My intentions are to go to King Island, Melbourne. That strange aircraft is hovering right on top of me again. It is hovering, and it's not an aircraft.
Delta Sierra Juliet.
Delta Sierra Juliet, Melbourne.
At this point, Valentich's microphone remained open for 17 seconds and transmitted a strange pulsing sound. And that was the last time any transmission was received from Fredrick Valentich, and no one has heard from him since. 13 years later, in 1991, an eyewitness came forward who had seen something strange in the skies over southern Australia that night. A gentleman was driving his two nieces back home after a day of hunting to his home in Apollo Bay, which would have been quite close to the flight path. The niece in the front seat was the first to notice, asking, "What's that light in the sky?" Quickly trying to look while still driving the vehicle, the man responded, "Those are only the lights of the aircraft." To which she responded, "No, I mean the green light above it." He snuck another peek a few seconds later and was able to see two sets of lights in the darkening sky. As the gentleman lived near a small airport in Apollo Bay, he was familiar with aircraft and the appearance of their lights at night. As the green light was so unusual, he decided to pull over to get a better look. He clearly saw a second, large, greenish, circular light, like it was riding on top of the airplane. He also said that it was always kept at a constant distance above and slightly behind the airplane's lights. He stood watching for another 15 to 20 seconds until both lights disappeared behind a hilltop, heading in a downwards trajectory. The entire sighting lasted about 1.5 minutes. On the same evening, another eyewitness, Roy Manifold, had been setting up his camera to take photos of the sunset. He said, "I'd done the normal thing, had the camera on automatic exposure, and I took 6 photographs of the sun disappearing into the sea. When developed, Manifold said one of the photographs displayed a particular blemish. I observed this mark on the print that looked like a developing error or something. They messed it up. I said, just a minute. That night I took that is the exact night that guy disappeared. A leading Australian photo lab found neither dirt nor damage on the negative, determining that the strange mark was actually in the picture. The negative was later sent to the US for computer analysis by a team of UFO researchers. They claimed that the blot was a solid metallic object. To them, it appeared to be enveloped in a cloud of exhaust situated about a mile from the camera. A second analysis, however, stated that the mark could be a developing error. Either way, Roy Manifold believes the photograph does show something of consequence. Unfortunately, I didn't see it, and I didn't hear anything that night either. First time I've had something like that on one of my prints, and I've done thousands of photographs without any incident or anything like that on them. Not everyone is convinced that Valentich had a run-in with the otherworldly. James Magaha and Joe Nickel looked at the case for the Skeptical Inquirer in 2013. They point out that, as it happens, a computer search of the sky for the day, time, and place of Valentich's flight reveals that the 4 points of bright light would have almost certainly have been Venus, which was at its brightest, Mars, Mercury, and the bright star Antares. These 4 lights would have represented a diamond shape. Given the well-known tendency of viewers to connect the dots, and so could well have been perceived as an aircraft or UFO. In fact, the striking conjunction was shaped as a vertically elongated diamond, thus explaining Valentich's saying of the UFO that it's a long shape. Magaha and Nickel also speculate that due to Valentich's inexperience and excitement of seeing what he thought might be a UFO, he may have fallen prey to the illusion of a tilted horizon. When the sun has gone down, it still brightens part of the horizon, while the rest of it gets gradually darker farther away. This imbalance of lighting can cause the horizon to appear tilted, so that in compensating by leveling the wings, the pilot inadvertently begins not to orbit as if in a circle, but rather to spiral downward, at first slowly, then with increasing acceleration. What complicates this story is the fact that the wreckage of the airplane has never been found. Despite 4 days of intense searching by military and civilian aircrafts of an area over 2,600 kilometers, or about 1,000 miles. The only potential clue is an engine cowl flap that was washed ashore 5 years later on Finder's Island, which is around 350 kilometers east of King Island. It was confirmed that the part came from a Cessna 182 and had a serial number in a certain range that included Valentich's aircraft. Very noteworthy, but far from conclusive. The lack of wreckage, combined with the other strange factors associated with the story, have led some to believe that Valentich had staged the whole thing. According to his father, the young pilot was obsessed with UFOs. Not only was he convinced that they were real, but they intended to attack Earth. Could he have fabricated the whole story and staged his own disappearance? The night that Valentich disappeared, police received several reports of an unidentified aircraft landing on nearby Cape Otway. Assuming Valentich followed the flight plan that he filed, he would have been in the Capes area at the time he began transmitting with the Air Flight Service. We also know that Valentich never informed King Island about his planned arrival, as was the normal practice. He also gave different reasons for the trip, telling flight officials that he was going to pick up friends, while telling others he was picking up crayfish. As far as my research indicates, the friends awaiting his arrival have never come forward, if they existed at all. Is it possible that Valentich, frustrated by his failing aviation career, fabricated the UFO sighting in order to stage his disappearance? Not only would an abduction story serve to validate his UFO conspiracy theories, but would also give him a fresh start on an otherwise troubled life. Some have suggested it could have been an elaborate suicide plot, but interviews with friends and family, as well as the events themselves, make that theory quite difficult to believe. While I always love a good UFO story, the other part of this tale that really resonates with me and connects to some of the other work we have been doing was that Valentich was such a believer that UFOs were not only real, but they intended us harm. We know from a variety of studies about the paranormal that those who believe in ghosts are more likely to have a strange or unexplainable encounter than those who don't. In paranormal circles, new thoughts have recently emerged in a similar vein, which ponder if places are in fact haunted, or if it is the human activity at those sites that are responsible or somehow instrumental in the ghost stories that continue to materialize. For example, at a well-known haunted site like the Ohio State Reformatory, tens of thousands of paranormal investigators pass through the buildings each year, not only trying to directly talk with the spirits, but also with a clear intention of having a paranormal experience. This line of thinking considers that perhaps it is not the stone and iron bars of the old jail that are haunted in a traditional sense by some horrific events in the past, but rather that the visitors who walk the grounds daily, reaching out into the void, are in some way causing, encouraging, or co-creating the strange events that occur. Which brings us back to Valentich. If we take the radio transmissions at face value and assume he did have a run-in with something unexpected, how do we factor in his own beliefs about UFOs into the equation? It would certainly seem coincidental or downright ironic that such a strong believer would have such a notable encounter that most likely ended up causing his death. And if the real purpose of his flight was not the trip to King Island, but rather to spend time snooping around in the clouds for UFOs, it is hard not to see the similarities between him and the ghost hunters roaming around in the darkened hallways at the Ohio State Reformatory. Which, for the moment, brings up an even more unanswerable and eerie question than the mystery itself. Could Fredrick Valentich's intentions and belief, whether conscious or otherwise, played a vital role in what happened to him on his fateful flight? Thank you so much for joining us for the episode. Tickets for our ghost tours in Kingston, Ottawa, and Toronto, as well as our new Haunted Talks t-shirts, can be found on our website, hauntedwalk.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, all at Haunted Walk. And if you have a moment or two, we would absolutely appreciate a 5-star review from you, wherever that you listen. As always, a big thanks to the entire Haunted Talks team, including Michelle Dennis, our outstanding audio editor. Until we meet again, keep your eyes on the skies, and sweet dreams.